Thank you, Mayor, and you've been around long enough to know that this community does make a difference, and all of you here are part of that difference, and we thank you very much. There are some board members who are leaving or have left our board at this point. I'd just like to acknowledge them. Tim Dillon from Ansonia and Seymour. And I'm not sure all of them are going to be here with us. I know Tim was here. Leon Sylvester, your former superintendent of schools, served with us very meaningfully for a number of years. And who else is not here tonight?
Rick Dunn is supposed to
Rick
be
Dunn.
here, but I don't know if he's.
Okay, so I'm not sure. Rick is now with the Naugatuck Council of Governments, and if you've driven Route 8 today, it's not an easy haul, neither is Route 34. So in any event, we'd like to thank them for all of their service to our organization and wish them well as they go forward. So thank you. These are for them. Yeah, we'll give it to them when they come in, and we'll take care of it. Okay, so bear with me for a few remarks, if I might, because I've kind of been involved in this endeavor for a little longer than other folks, and we do go back to the late 80s when we were identifying the Gates Fund and wanted to bring it aboard, and we've now forged a very meaningful partnership with the Community Foundation for Greater New Haven, whose CEO, Will Ginsberg, is standing right over here. And say hello to Will. And there's a lot of members from the organization, which I had the opportunity and the privilege of serving on their board and chaired it for 2 years. And I'm delighted to see that we're all in this together. And this is a very important feature for all of us. They're extremely supportive to our organization and remain so. Just some personal background. So I'm an only child. There was John from Ansonia, and there was Anna from Fairhaven. And so this unification of some sort that we have had with the Community Foundation actually was preceded by their marriage back in the 40s. And the only person they produced, and maybe it's because they couldn't stand anyone after me, it was me. But being a descendant of immigrants, even twice removed in generations, you identify what you want your America to be. And the mayor's correct. You look around at the politics and you realize some of what's going on. You don't know if it's just statements that are meaningful or meaningless. I've always looked at it as an America as a place where people of all backgrounds can develop their skills and interests in an atmosphere solicitous of opportunity. I believe that forging bonds, as we've done here with the foundation, with our neighbors is preferable to demeaning and condemning anyone for any reason. I cherish this relationship we have with New Haven, and it does remain on my highlight reel of meaningful moments. And this regionalism concept has been going on for a long time at the state level, and we all understand that the Valley is self-identified as a region, unlike many other created regions by state or federal dictate. And so what we end up is a meaningful opportunity to connect with all of our neighbors in a way that we deem appropriate. I've always considered being a product of the Valley, but for instance, having gone to Notre Dame for high school and having to deal with the New Haven community, that at times in the past, we were not viewed through the most positive lens. And I've always felt that that was not only inappropriate, but it was factually incorrect. That if you look at our Valley, we basically have great generational authenticity, and we have a superb sense of caring for one another. We do for others as we do in this foundation, as you want to do for your immediate family, which makes us all a connected family. Tonight's both a celebration of our past, a clarion for a future vision, built on our ever-increasing strengths here in the Valley. Community, as you know, is really a soldering of connections among us. as families, friends, and business associates, whether partners or sometimes in my business, adversaries, through our time and our space. We celebrate our diversity while proactively searching for durable relations and a sharing of common values that extend beyond our immediate geographical ties. I usually write these things and I never refer to them, but I decided I would refer to them a little bit. So we just got back from Washington for a national conference within the past 2 weeks. And this is a conference on foundations. And there are lots of leaders from all sects of life. And their basic focal points were identity, purpose, and place. And if you look at what we've put together here, we have a clear identity. We have a wonderful place, and thank you for the venue here this evening. And we have multiple but very important purposes in life. And one of them, through our organization, the Valley Community Foundation, is to make sure that all of these other entities that need assistance are provided for. Jamie Cohen, when he was CEO, often talked, and he was my partner down in New Haven on the board, about taking people and don't let them live under a bridge, that you've got to take care of the immediate needs of people. And I think if you look at our organizational setup, we're always trying to do that. We're trying to identify needs, and we're trying to respond to them in a meaningful way. So these focal points were sort of enhanced when we were down there. Does anyone know who David McCullough is? That's right. David McCullough was an historian who wrote books on Truman, and he wrote them most recently on the Wright brothers. And if you ever watched PBS, he wrote it on John Adams, and they did a series on John Adams, well worth writing. He was the lead-off speaker, and he talked about history being the most important item that we need to be able to connect ourselves. And so when you look at this wonderful valley going back from the 1600s as the major port, and then the major manufacturing community, and now a major transportation network with Route 8, you realize that we still stay in the forefront. This meeting in Washington was ended by Sir Richard Branson. Now, I'm sure no one knows who he is. Does anybody know that Richard Branson was admittedly dyslexic? And apparently he never graduated from school, but he had a keen sense of wanting to learn. So as a result of that, he loved records, and he started Virgin Records. And then he wanted to fly, and he told the story of how he couldn't get on the American Airlines flight from Puerto Rico to the Bahamas, so he rented his own airline, put the people aboard it, put the sign Virgin, and that's how he started his airline. And now for a cheap, and we'd like one of these donations if we could, $250,000, in escrow you can reserve a seat into space. Well, I happened to be riding the elevator with Sir Richard. You know, who knows, serendipity in life is sometimes the best, right? And we started talking about our families and our grandkids. He's got 3. We started talking about everything. He's actually around my size, about the same height and about the same weight. The problem was my wallet is about $5 billion less. But you know, our collective past is the necessary predicate to an appreciation of where we are now and where we're going to be. And if some of you may recall this, 31 years ago, in this same space, you almost wish you could dial yourself back. In the same space, we were introducing We Have It All in the Valley. And some of you were here. Some of you may well remember that. And that was an initiative. And Dave, we were on the chamber together. You remember that, don't you? And, you know, that sort of spawned itself where the National Cities Award was given to us in 2000 after being a semifinalist in 99. A lot of you people are to be thanked for making that happen. And you realize that this organization isn't even that old. It's the same age as Google. There's a reason for that. Visionary leaders sought to build a permanent, yet dynamic structure, responsive to identified needs and opportunities. That's part of the background of Google. That's our background too. Google's trying to organize the world's information and make it universally useful and accessible. We're trying in a much more modest way, but equally courageous, to build on the success of the earlier Valley Advisory Council through the Community Foundation and the visions of these Gates brothers 50, 60, 70 years ago in order to make this community the best it can be. I'd like to think that knowing where we are, that both organizations are doing pretty well. But we might want to talk with Google about a little loan, if we could. On to 2016. Again, thanks to all of your generosity. The foundation has grown substantially. We thank our dedicated board, many of whom are with us tonight, and Sharon will talk about them later. And also our great staff, Beth, John, and Valerie. Okay, all of these funds that we have from each of your participations are being put to optimum use in the support of all of our local nonprofits. All of those nonprofits striving for excellence. And when we go through our responsive grant process, which will begin next week, we as a board are looking to be sure that we get the best and the brightest and encourage innovation and encourage, at the end of the day, participation and excellence. And I want to thank our old CEOs, and not old by age, but Angela Powers and Jamie, okay? And my heartfelt compliments to Sharon. They all have provided us with steady and dependable steering of all the charitable dollars that you've been part of producing for us. So, understanding all of where we have been, the question is, where are we going? I'll sum it up by saying the best is yet to come. And with that, let me introduce Lynn Bassett Perry. Lynn's our vice chair, and Lynn's also the head of the program committee for some remarks. Thank you very much.